Welcome to our 14th District Zoom community conversation with Representative Deb Manjarrez and Representative Gloria Mendoza. I'm your host, John Satgast. This evening, we'll be providing a legislative update and taking your questions. Now, I'll ask you to hold your questions for a few minutes as we introduce your lawmakers, and then we will begin taking your questions live with your legislators. Right now, I'd like to introduce our 14th District guests. First, I'd like to welcome Representative Deb Manjarrez. Good evening, Representative Manjarrez.
Good evening. So glad to see you all joining us. Well, we've just finished our first floor debates of 10 days of voting bills off the floor, sending them over to the Senate. It has been quite a learning experience since we got here on January 13th. I'm so proud to be representing the 14th district. We've learned a lot. Some good bills got from our side got voted off the floor, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But so glad to have you all with us, and looking forward to your questions.
All right, and we're glad to have you with us tonight as well. And we're also glad to have with us Representative Gloria Mendoza. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited. Our first town hall meeting. Well, I'm Gloria Mendoza. I can't see you, but I hope you can see me well. Representing District 14. So District 14, for some of you that may be new, covers part of Klickitat, Yakima County. Most of our district is in the Yakima County, Benton, and Franklin. And it's been exciting because we've had a lot of people from our district visit us. But let me just tell you a little bit about myself. So I live in Grandview, Washington. I grew up in Grandview. I come from a large family. My parents had 10 kids. They raised us on a farm worker budget. I started working as a farm worker very early. I was a young kid and became a full-time farm worker by the age of 13. And so I know the ag industry very well in the Yakima County, and we used to travel a little bit in the state of Washington. My father didn't like to go too far, so we stayed kind of local, but we picked everything from cherries, apples, everything you can pick and cut. I did it, asparagus, hops. So it's a pleasure to be representing you. I was in local government before. So I served 8 years in local government. I was the mayor for 5 years. I am excited because I think there's only 2 of us bilingual in this side of, the Republican Party. So I don't know who's there, pero les quiero saludar. Gloria Mendoza, es un placer estar con ustedes. Por si tenemos gente que habla solamente español, queremos darles la bienvenida. Es un honor, representarlos acá en Olimpia. Ha sido divertido, hemos tenido muchísima gente de nuestro distrito y pues no se las voy a hacer muy larga porque si quiere hablar conmigo y creo que hoy se va a hacer la mayoría de la junta en inglés, me pueden marcar y al 1-800-562-6000. But we'll leave it at that. If you want to reach out to me, that's the number, because most of our presentation is going to be done in English. But it's just a pleasure to be here. I'm a mother of 3 kids, which is the reason that I'm here. I really want to represent the Hispanic community, la gente mexicana, porque creo que hace falta. It's important, but I'm representing all of us that live in that side of the state. I make sure, and Representative Manjarrez as well, that we mention District 14 any opportunity we get. And with that, I will turn it back to you, John.
All right. Thank you very much, Representative Gloria Mendoza. And tonight, we really do want to hear from you. So we're going to take your calls here in just a few moments. But I want to go back around and maybe get a little bit of a legislative update tonight. So let me tell you where we are in the process, okay? So right now, we're actually in day 60 of a 105-day legislative session, which is expected to end on the 27th of April. We just finished what's called House of Origin cutoff. So what that means is it means that all of the bills that were in the House that or all the bills that originated in their chamber had to come out of their chamber, the chamber of their origin, or they may possibly be dead for the year. So what that meant is all these committee bills, all these bills that went through all the committees, and then they were passed out of their committees, they came to the House floor, and your lawmakers had just a few days to vote all of these bills out to make sure that the bills survive and move on to the Senate. And yesterday at 5 o'clock was the deadline for that. So your lawmakers have been on the floor for probably the last 8 or 9 days, very late into the evening. In fact, this morning they adjourned at around 2:30 in the morning. There's one time that they adjourned at 3:30 in the morning, and that's after working pretty much all day. So we're kind of on the tired mode here.
Yes.
just a little bit, but we are very happy to have you on board tonight. And so we want to talk a little bit about some of Representative Manjarrez and Representative Mendoza's bills and just the process itself and how it went. So let's start with Representative Manjarrez. So tell us a little bit. I know you had a bill there was a tax exemption. Tell us about that first.
Well, as you know, we have in Washington State, we don't pay sales tax on groceries at the grocery store. We do pay sales tax when we go to a fast food restaurant or out to dinner, which a lot of people do. There's a lot of small families. You know that restaurant, that fast food one that your kids always want to stop at. So my first bill was to introduce, to take sales tax off of prepared food. It did get a public hearing. I got to present it in front of, it was the Finance Committee, but it did not get executive out, meaning it's dead. It was not going to go anywhere, which we kind of expected because of this tight budget year. They were not going to give up any taxes back to the taxpayer. You know, we're in a big affordability crisis. We all know that with our houses and our gas and our groceries. And so I was really hopeful to give the people a little bit of relief. We haven't given the people in Washington State a tax relief in a very, very long time. So that was one bill. The other bill I dropped had to do with the big FIFA, the big soccer games that are coming to the state of Washington in 2026. That's going to be a really huge event. 6 different weekends, that is, we have 6 consecutive Super Bowls, if you want to say, of soccer going to be over here in the Seattle area. There are fan zones. My bill, what it specifically said is I wanted to ensure that our youth in the 14th district, Lower Yakima Valley, had an opportunity to participate in those games as much as possible. If they couldn't afford it, perhaps some kind of a participation in that big FIFA event. Once again, that one didn't even get a hearing. So that did not move this year either. But so I'm still very hopeful that, you know, the first year we got to figure out which bills really help our district and hurt our district, to figure out what we don't want to pass laws just to pass a law. And it's very hard to pass laws, which is good. We want that to be the way it is. So those are my 2. A little bit disappointed, but there's always next year.
Always next year, indeed.
Absolutely.
Well, Representative Mendoza, as we talked about, a lot of floor action this week, and last night was what they called maybe the 5 o'clock bill, and I'll explain that a little bit. 5 o'clock was the deadline for the House of Origin, but if they pull out a bill at say 4:59 and put it on the floor, they can debate that for the evening, and they did that last night at just about 15 minutes before 5 o'clock. And that was the bill that would basically undo the Parental Bill of Rights. And it was a 7-hour debate. Tell us about that debate last night. That was incredible.
Yes, John, it was. You know, we knew that bill might be introduced. We were hoping it wouldn't. It was House Bill 1296. And it's just undoing the Parental Bill of Rights that, you know, had been passed in the House last year. Apparently there were over 450,000 people that signed on. And so the bill was passed last year, and this year, House Bill 1296 the idea was to undo it. And so the Republicans had, gosh, over 40 amendments on the floor. And so we knew that if that bill was going to introduce, we knew we were going to go and put up the best, just rebuttal argument so that our audience, we had over 30,000 people watching us live. And so it's really important. I just want to tell you that one of the things that I'm seeing is that, parents and families are under attack in a lot of our bills. And not just in, House Bill 1296, but just as Representative Menjarrez mentioned, tax. If you look at, we had 1,055 bills introduced. 261 of those bills were passed in these 10 days that we were on the floor. And out of those bills, we had well over close to half of those bills that impose a tax on Washingtonians. And I'm really concerned about that because, as you know, in our district, the majority of the people in our district are either they work in agriculture, in transportation. We have in education, which is our community colleges, our universities that we have, Heritage University, but we really rely on agriculture. And so when you impose a tax on in these bills, it's going to be passed on to us. And so most of the people that have come to Olympia and that we have talked to in our district have really been concerned about food prices. As you know, food prices are out, just out of control. Gas prices are, people just can't afford to, to support their families anymore. And I'm really concerned about that. So what I can tell you, John, is I came here, I'll share the bills. I introduced 2 bills as well, but I came here to stop bad bills. That was really my, my priority is how do we make sure that we put on the best argument on some of these bills that continue to add tax after tax, and it's 1% here, 0.3% here, and before you know it, property taxes are off the, just the go over in a level that, is really just impacting our families. And so, but I introduced, one of the things that in our district that I was really concerned about is public safety. I think it's important for us to support our law enforcement. I was very fortunate that I served as mayor in the city of Grandview, where we have an outstanding law enforcement, police department and great law enforcement officers, that, really just have an outstanding relationship with the community. I was fortunate to have served in city council when we were in the somewhere in the top 5 safest cities in the state. And so I got the opportunity to really see how the reason that was, the case is because our police department really has a great relationship with our schools, with our youth that are in college, with our community. They really take pride in getting to know everyone. So I introduced a bill, House Bill 1783, that would allow off-duty officers to receive, because, I knew there were going to be some issues with the union. So on their off-duty time, I wanted them to go in to colleges, universities. We actually, there was a case done by the Washington State Board of Community and Technical Colleges that said that they were having trouble bringing in law enforcement officers to talk to their students about getting into law enforcement. And they couldn't do it because of this, because the law didn't allow them to. So I introduced, this, bill to allow them to get an honorarium where colleges and technical schools would bring them in to do a presentation. So there would be prep time. It wouldn't just be, you know, going in with their uniform saying hello. It would actually be a class that they would do for, you know, 4 or 5 hours. That would be up to the college or university or technical school to determine. But it did make it to, you know, it passed committee. But, you know, in the process, something you all need to know is that you introduce the bill and in committee, it changes a bit. And then by the time it gets to the floor, it's changed to, it's become a bill that you don't recognize anymore. And so what I decided to do is, you know, the bill was going to, they approved it and they said, well, instead of an honorarium, we want them to receive a gift of $25. I thought it was just, it would be disrespectful to our law enforcement officers to, you know, to let the bill pass with a gift of $25. I just thought it was important. I just took it off the list, and we'll bring it back next year and continue to see what we can do. I introduced a second bill. That one didn't get a hearing, so it was House Bill 1920, which would help law enforcement officials quickly determine if juvenile had been involved in a crime under investigation. I had been talking to people in my district, particularly law enforcement, that said it was making it very difficult for them to talk to youth that, you know, if they received a call and they went up to the youth just to find out if they weren't involved, and then would just, you know, they would send them home. Today, as it stands, they can't talk to youth until an attorney is involved. And so it really holds our youth longer than they should be held. So that was my second bill, didn't get a hearing, but I'm big on public safety. I'm really concerned about everything that's going on with, you know, with just the fentanyl issue. I've done a few videos on that, but I'll send it back to you, John, so that we can continue.
Let's
Well,
keep talking a minute about the parents' right debate that happened last night. That's very discouraging. You guys remember the history of the initiative. Over 450,000 individual people signed that initiative to send it to the legislature. So it came to the legislature last session, and it was unanimous out of the Senate, and I think it was 85 to 14, I think, out of the House. Sounded wonderful, right? This is what these were an initiative from the people. Well, people were worried that the only reason they voted it out of the House last year was to do exactly what they did this year, was they brought it in and they gutted it. And they're taking a ton of rights away from parents. It became a bill about student rights, teacher rights, not about parent rights, putting a wedge directly between the state and and the parents and their children. And so they brought it back to pass it out of here. And what happens legally, I don't know how it can happen, but we can't bring it back on a referendum or initiative. So they did this on purpose to bring it back and gut it. We can't do an initiative again. It's extremely sad. There's already a very low trust level between parents and the schools now. Doing this only makes it worse. We've already got reducing attendance in our public schools, and this will continue. So beyond that, we'll send it back to you, John. We'll talk about a lot of bad bills on crime in a little bit.
Sure. And I know we've got a lot of folks that are really wanting to have some questions asked and answered. So we're going to go to that in just a moment. And by the way, you were talking about the Parental Bill of Rights. They put something called an emergency clause on that. And what that means is if that goes through, yeah, you won't be able to do a referendum on it. Let's go now to, thank you for all of those answers. I want to explain our format a little bit tonight because we're going to be running short on time if we don't get started here. So let me take a moment to explain our format and how this will be conducted tonight. We'll begin your questions in just a few moments live. If you have a question, click to raise your hand. You're going to see a raised hand icon down on the screen, so you can go ahead and click that right now. So if you see that, click that raised hand icon on your screen. Now, secondly, it's very important to note we cannot discuss any issues related to political campaigns in this forum. This is a legislative sponsored forum, and as such, ethics rules prohibit campaign discussions. So if a campaign related question is asked, I will intervene and I will remind the audience of this rule. I'm also going to respectfully ask you to stay with questions related to Washington State and state government in Olympia, not Washington, D.C., not President Trump, not the federal government. That's not relevant to our state legislature. We're talking about Washington State here, this Washington, not the other one. So I'm going to respectfully ask if we can stay with those as well. And we'll be trying to stay on time, wrapping up about 7:30. If we don't get to your question, I will provide email addresses and contact information at the end of this forum. So with that, let's start taking some questions. And our first caller is Delmer. Good evening, Delmer, and thanks for being with us on our community conversation tonight. And Delmer,
can you hear me, John?
Oh, yes, I can hear you. Go ahead. Yes. Hi.
Yeah. Okay. You know, a lot of these bad bills are unconstitutional, and I'd say they border on being illegal bills. But the one thing that the Democrats have done, what the Republicans need to start doing, is the Democrats stick together. They speak as one voice. And it was just like when Jim Walsh brought up HB 1531, made a very, very great argument. And we have 58 Republicans in the legislature, and they should stand behind him. I mean, this is just an example, but all these bills, if you're going to have a voice in Olympia, everybody needs to stick together. I mean, united we stand, divided we fall. And this is where the Republicans, the people that are in Washington legislature, have really failed to stand together, because you're not going to win any arguments unless you stand united. And I just think that that my hope is that you people will realize that this has to be done. You have to stand together and fight against these bills. It's the only way you're going to gain a voice in Olympia against the Democrats. But that's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you, Delmer. We appreciate it. And so who wants to take that first response?
I'll take that one. So Delmer, no, we agree. But I need to tell you this, we had a really great group of new Republican freshmen that came in with Gloria and I. Oh, so many veterans, they're mayors and from prior sheriffs, and we stood united. Okay, we are united in our belief system and how government should work and how it shouldn't override the rights of the people. And so I hear your frustration. I've had that frustration in the past, but I'm telling you, and because we were united, we were able to kill a lot of really bad bills this session. And you don't always see that. We can talk about that in a little bit, but we are figuring that out, and we are going to stand together for what's right for our kids and our families.
All right, Representative Mendoza. Well, I just want to say that thank you very much for your question. One of the things that was interesting is that we do on bills that are impacting families, are going to increase taxes. You'll find that Republicans are usually on the same page. We really care about, families and jobs, anything that is impacting the economy. But, I do see that Republicans want to hear, you want to hear what is best for your district. And that's one of the things that I came in just saying, how do I best represent my district, which is District 14. And so sometimes there are some things that are going to help, a district that is on this side of the state. And so that, Republican representative is thinking, well, this does benefit this side of the state. You'll find that there are very few bills that, you know, are going to benefit the entire state. There were so many bills that I just saw that weren't going to do anything for District 14, but increase taxes. I vote no, but you know, Representative Walsh, he is just great on the floor. I agree with you. He always puts up the best you know, just fight on the floor, because there's a lot of bad bills. I would say most of the bills that were introduced weren't in the favor of families and the economy.
All right. Well, if you're just joining us, we're in a community conversation with Representatives Deb Manjarrez and Gloria Mendoza. And we invite you to press the raised hand button just down on the lower part of your screen. If you have a question for your 14th District lawmakers. Our next caller is Christina. Thanks for being with us. Good evening, Christina.
Hi. I submitted my question. My question is about the HB 1227 bill. Because our fatality rate of the children in our state has increased, the latest from DCYF is 220% increase since this bill was passed in 2021 and then implemented in 2023. Part of that is overdoses from fentanyl, children getting a hold of the parents' straws or foil. And then the recent fatality in Yakima is a direct result of this. And I know Chris Corey has been trying to help with this as well. And so I just wanted to know your thoughts. I know that Gloria, I don't know if she still does, but in the past ran a visit supervising agency. So
Yes, Christina, and I'll start with that because I'm very concerned about the fentanyl issue as well. I in fact have done a lot of talks about the fentanyl problem. I did a video where, you know, we've had many deaths, but we've had a lot of child deaths from parents that are using fentanyl. A child picks up the spoon, and we've had a few cases in the state where that has happened. And so I'm really concerned. We're working on a few with Radio KDNA to do some marketing. So we've been you know, we've been working directly with them to provide them some you know, some help so that they can continue educating the community. But we're also working, and I will have Representative Manjarrez talk about, we're also working on with a group so that we can bring attention to the overdoses so that we can hopefully bring more funding into our district. So I will turn it over to Representative Manjarrez, and she can talk about that for the sake of time.
And Representative Manjarrez, I was just going to also chime in for just a second. You just recently sent in an opinion editorial to the SELA paper and to the Toppenish Review on this very subject.
That's right. That's right. After that death happened in Yakima, which was atrocious, that baby had been dead 6 days. And so DCYF, no, you know, and I'm taking a really hard stand on this. DCYF, which is our CPS in this state, they're not doing their job. One death is too much. So one of the bills that the Republicans dropped this year was to make it, if there's fentanyl in the home, that is a danger to our children, and the children are to be removed. And it did not get out at all. The bills that happen over here is they want to reduce jail time and criminal prosecution for these kind of crimes. It is unacceptable. DCYF, you know what they actually allow out there with their social workers is if they know the parents have fentanyl or drug, they give them a little box. The state of Washington gives them a box and say, lock up your drugs and try not to do it when the kids are in the room. It's unacceptable. It is unacceptable, and we need people like the ones that are on this call to scream about it. So we will continue. We'll drop that bill again. It'll come up next year. We're going to make, that's an endangerment to the child. And I am sorry, the children need to get removed from that home. And in Yakima, where's the social worker on that one? We have to follow up with those families and those children more often. And if we need more money to do that, those are the kind of things government must do. And so, as you can tell, I can kind of get enraged about that because it was just a horrific
Yes.
situation. And we'll hear it again and again and again. The acceptance of drug abuse in our society, and we are accepting it because we're not doing anything about it. We're saying that it's okay. It can't be accepted. And so we'll continue to hammer away at that to keep our children safe. You know, the majority party wants to keep those children with those families. Well, I agree too. I'd love to see families stay together. But when you hear story after story after story after they brought the child back to their biological parents and they're still abused for one way or the other, well, something else has to be done.
It's a heartbreaking situation. And by the way,
Yes.
my apologies for the audio in the background because I'm doing this from home today, and my son takes medicine at 7 o'clock. I've got 2 disabled boys that I care for. So let's talk. Let's go to our next caller here, and it's Robert. Robert, thanks for being with us tonight on our community conversation with Representative Manjarrez and Representative Mendoza.
Yes, can you hear
Hello,
me?
Mr. Ozuna.
We
Hello,
can. Go ahead.
Robert.
Okay, it's Robert Ozuna from the Grandview City Council here in
Yes.
Grandview, and shout out to our Representative Mendoza from the city of
Thank
Grandview.
you.
Appreciate
Yes,
it.
council member. Thank you.
My interest is to find out how the bills are coming along in terms of public safety. I know there's a grant program that's moving through the House and the Senate, and just want to get an update on public safety bills that look pretty good, that are moving through, that might get approved.
So are you talking about well, right now, $100 million is still, Governor Ferguson wanted, he wanted to see $100 million go out for more police officers in the state of Washington. That is still, I believe, on the budget. It's on the operating budget side. It's not actually in a bill. It's on an operating budget side for both sides. So I am cautiously optimistic that that is going to happen, which is going to be really huge for Washington State.
Great, thank you.
Yes, I want to add, Council Member Ozuna, that it is unfortunate that we didn't there were a lot of good bills on the side of the Republicans that were very, just focused on public safety, but the majority party introduced a lot of bills that are actually on the opposite side, where they're very easy on crime, leniency bills where, allowing individuals to get out of their sentences before. That really concerns me because I think it's important that we allow individuals to get reformed before they go back into our communities. So I don't think that that we should be easy, on crime and tough on law enforcement. Right now, we are in a crisis as it relates to law enforcement. We just don't have enough police officers on the street. So that really concerned me when I saw bills that were, that are going to allow people to get shorter sentences, giving judges, flexibility to not be tough on crime. So what we are doing in District 14 is we're working on, hopefully bringing some funds into local cities to support our law enforcement and to support the cities so that you can continue to do your job in supporting locally, law enforcement. And so it's definitely something we're going to continue working on. Being freshmen, we're new, we're learning as I mean, I'm going to be very transparent. It was very alarming to see all of the, just the taxes that were added to these bills, the, easy on crime, bills, especially because, you know, Washington, we rank #1 in the nation in retail theft, in property crime, in auto theft, and we have, you know, one per just in police officers per capita, and so it's really we're not in a good place right now when, you know, as it relates to crime and the substance abuse issue.
And people just can't afford new taxes, as well as we're talking about the affordability crisis. Just
Yes.
some notes here. Washington has the 3rd highest gas prices in the nation, the 4th highest sales tax rate, the 4th highest cost for
Costing.
groceries. Try buying eggs these days. And it's the 3rd most expensive state for purchasing a home, has the 5th highest rent of any state in the nation. That's a lot of money. And when government is trying to take more of your money, that means less in your pocket to be able to do what you need to do to support your families. Let's go to our next caller. Robert, thank you very much for your question. Our next caller is Cody. Cody, thanks for being with us tonight. You're on the community conversation with Representatives Manjarrez and Mendoza.
Hi, Cody.
Hello.
Cody?
Hi, Mr. Discrow, you're on.
We see your hand, and but we don't hear anything from you. So I guess we'll so Cody, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and move on. And if you want to come back and try to talk with us, just raise your hand again, and we'll wait a minute. Cody, you're going to have to unmute yourself. Now I see the mute button there. There we go. Can you talk now? Nope, I don't hear Cody. Okay. Well, when you get that figured out, we'll come back and try to take your question. We're going to go to our next caller then, and it's Karma. Karma, good evening. Thanks for being with us on the community conversation.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to ask a question. My name is Karma Naveen, and I am with the Washington Federation of State Employees Union Local 1326. So I am I'm a local state worker, and well, we are in a 12 billion budget deficit, and Governor Ferguson is suggesting cuts across the board. We're going to feel it in all of our agencies. But there are some points that I feel our community would be impacted greatly by. And so I wanted to ask you how you plan to address some of those. One of them is that they're asking state workers to possibly take one day off a month for the next 2 years, which is pretty difficult for some of us as it is. That's about $300 out of my paycheck every single month. And that's a big impact just to me, but that's everybody across the board is going to end up having to do that. And so I think a big way to fix the issue would be to push for the rich people, the people in that 1% who are at the top, who are not paying their fair share of taxes, to start paying their fair share rather than taking the little that we have when we're already working so hard for this state, asking for them to start putting their share in. And then also, could you also address the idea that we will need to close down some of our very needed services for our disabled and our mental health clients? Rainier School in Ording and Yakima Valley School are very much needed for our communities. We have a lot of parents and family members who can't handle taking care of people on their own. And so they do use a lot of those beds for respite. We do have a select number of people who have been in there long term, but mostly we use them for crisis beds and support for our communities. If they're to shut down, then the burden is going to move to our communities and law enforcement and hospitals. How do you expect, or how do you plan to address those things?
So
yes, Karma. I'll let you, and then
so we are not, you're right. We're fighting very hard to keep the Yakima Valley School in Sela and the Rainier in Ording open. Okay, we're fighting that was Governor Inslee's going out the door, his recommendation. That's not Ferguson's recommendation, nor is it the Republican budget side recommendation to do that. So we're fighting very hard not to do that. Ferguson was the one that recommended, so he recommended giving everybody the raise, which is $4 billion for state employees, and then asking them to take a day off per month. The Senate budget, the Republican Senate budget, just came out this week without raising any new taxes on people. Because if you raise property taxes, it hits everybody across the board, or sales taxes. The Republican Senate side, and I haven't seen the Republican House side budget, would be to provide bonuses to state employees as opposed to that $4 billion increase, and then there would be no time off. So that's all still being renegotiated. I don't think, it's my opinion that, I mean, the state's responsibilities are the schools. And then beyond that, it's for our most vulnerable, which is going to be Medicaid and all of those hospitals and the Yakima Valley School, that sort of thing. Those things can't be cut. We need to look deeper down the line and see the things that we can't. It's just like we do in our own households. But, you know, our budget, our revenues are still growing at about 4% a year. So our revenues are still growing. But the spending has gone way beyond that. So we have got some really good people working on those budget sides so that you're right, the state employees, so they do not get hit with the brunt of what has to happen at the budget side. And
Yes.
there's some other ways that we can do it, some other cuts and other things. And but Medicaid and for our most vulnerable is not where those cuts are going to take place.
Representative
Well,
Mendoza.
yes, I'd like to add, Karma. Well, first of all, thank you, Karma, for bringing up that very important issue, because that is very concerning to both Representative Manjarrez and I. The way that we've been trying to fight that is, one, by supporting the worker and supporting our schools in our district. We don't like to see any cuts for employees because it's expensive. Everything is expensive right now. And we've already talked about that. And so the way that we've been fighting it is, anytime we look at a bill, we always look at, is it going to increase taxes? Because we don't have a budget issue. We have a spending issue. We still have money coming in, and it's growing every year if you look at our budget, but we are allocating funds like, just a lot of the House, on the majority party side, if you look at the majority of their bills, it's increasing taxes, which means it's going to continue to impact you. So the way we're fighting is saying, no, if it's got a tax on it, we say keep things how they are. Don't add anything additional to our families because they can't afford it. I actually shared, because, in our district, we have a lot of farm workers in our area. And I shared that, on the floor that, my father, he went to buy, to make a caldo de res, which is, a beef stew. And he went to buy a chayote, and he said, I just about went back to leave it, but I was already in the register, and the lady, he said, the teller said, well, because I paused and wasn't sure if I should take it or not. And that she said, so are you going to take it? And he goes, so I got embarrassed, but he paid over $10 for a chayote, which is like a potato. But so food is just right now for, our families. We have large families in our area. If you want to take your kids out to eat or to the movies, you just can't afford to do that anymore. And so we're very concerned. We're with you. We agree with you. And so you can help us by also contacting, other representatives that I always tell people that come, it's great that you come and see Representative Manjarrez and I, and then we send them to District 15, which is close to our district. But I say, go see as many representatives as possible. Share your story. Tell them the same story you told us, and say, if you continue to raise prices and cut you know, our paycheck, it's going to have a, you know, serious impact on our family. So that's how you could also help us. Thank you.
All right. And actually, you can use the toll-free legislative hotline to access and send a message to any of your representatives, your lawmakers in Olympia. And so if you have a pen or a pencil handy, I will give that to you. I'll do it very slowly so that you can write it down. It's, again, a toll-free legislative hotline. It's 1-800-562-6000. Again, that's 1-800-562-6000. And while I'm giving this information on contact information, let me also extend to you the contact information for your 14th District lawmakers that you see here on the screen. For Representative Manjarrez, her website is representative.debmanjarrez.com. Manjarrez is spelled Manjarrez. So spell it out. It's representative.debmanjarrez.com. And that's where you can find e-newsletters, videos, all of her contact information. She serves on the Housing Committee as the assistant ranking member on appropriations in the Healthcare and Wellness Committee. An email address for Representative Manjarrez is deb.manjarrez, again, MANJARREZ @leg.wa.gov. And her telephone number is 360-786-7856. Again, 360-786-7856. And I'll be giving that number a little bit later in the hour before we close our program. For Representative Mendoza, you can go to her website. It's also representativegloria.mendoza.com. Spell out representative. And her email address is gloria.mendoza@leg.wa.gov. Telephone number is 360-786-7960. Again, that's 360-786-7960. And she serves as the assistant ranking member on the House Transportation Committee. That's a powerful committee in Olympia that deals with all of our road projects and highways and transportation related issues. She also serves on the Environment and Energy Committee and the Post-Secondary Education and Workforce Committee. Let's, with that, go to our next caller. It's Rachel. Hi, Rachel. Thanks for being with us on our community conversation this evening.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
All right, great. So I had a question kind of similar to Karma's question about progressive revenue. So I'm not sure I heard an answer in there specifically about progressive revenue. I know our state taxes are harder on working people than our ultra wealthy. Gloria Mendoza said that we don't like to see any cuts for employees, but of course, what is being talked about in the budget, my understanding is cuts for employees. So including, I work at Yakima Valley College. I know the CTCs are looking at concerns with the OFM overpayment being returned, which is going to function like a cut, and the COLAs if they're not fully funded, but the furloughs also have us concerned. So can we tax the ultra wealthy instead of to provide relief for working families?
So what do we,
Well, first, yeah, go for it, Deb.
so who's the ultra wealthy and how are we going to tax them? The wealth, they want a wealth tax to look at unfunded or look at unrealized gains. I don't support a wealth tax in this state. We have doubled the amount of revenue we brought into this state over the past 10 years, from 35 billion to over 72 billion. Okay, we had a $15 billion excess 2 years ago, rainy day fund. It's gone. We have got to look at what we're spending. What's our administration on all of these programs? I don't support going after a wealthy group. I don't support an income tax. We already have the capital gains tax and that's really going to hit only the wealthy that have large stock ownership. That's the only people that are really going to pay it. It's not on real estate at this point. So I'm not one for any more taxes. We need to look at where we're spending it. And not all of the, the spending is on state employee wages. There's huge amounts that go for lots of other programs. and we need to look at them. What's our homeless program doing? Is it working? What we're doing right now is not working. It's not working at all. We're not getting those people into drug treatment, and we're not getting them off the streets. You know, we're just pouring money into it, and it's not working. And you wonder, you know, who's making money off keeping that program even going, because it is not doing what we should be doing. So I, for one, am not for a wealth tax, and I'm not for an increase of any taxes across the board. We need to look at our spending, and there's lots of lines in our spending. If we look at commerce and some of the nonprofit grants that come out of commerce, there's a lot of savings that can be done. Gloria, you have something to add?
Yes, well, I just wanted to add that really the cuts are not coming from, it's coming from the majority party, which is the Democrats. They're the ones that are making the cuts because they know that that money has to be cut somewhere, and they are you know, currently the majority party. If the Republicans were in the majority, then we would be looking at how do we, you know, how do we save some of the money by being, you know, more responsible on what, like, for example, this year, was it necessary to bring in additional programs that are going to tax, you know, Washingtonians? I would have recommended that we take care of the programs we have now, because all these new taxes are going to continue to impact existing services that we have. And so I say, let's look at what we're doing with the budget now. I do have to say that I'm happy that the governor is, you know, looking at how he's going to save. I mean, that's a good start, but it's important that it doesn't impact you. I'm very concerned that any worker, whether, you know, you're wealthy or not wealthy, I don't want any of you to be impacted. So I just that's really the reason that I've been turning down every single bill that comes through. If I see it's a tax, you know, it's going to be an additional tax, I'm voting no. It's just, my background is business, and I know as a business owner, I can't continue, if I'm struggling, I can't continue to add additional employees, additional, you know, services until I'm able to take care of what we have. So my recommendation is, let's take care of our budget. And if we're not being responsible with our spending, then let's look at our spending.
All right, we appreciate that. Rachel, thank you for your question there. And we're getting close to the bottom of the hour. I'm going to maybe take a couple more questions. If you have a question, now's the time to put your hand up and get it up there right now. And we've got a lot of people that are just sitting here listening, so we want to hear from you. Okay. Yeah.
That's
so
wonderful.
So, you know, get your hands up if you, you know, out there, if you have a question, and we'll see. We'll see. But we're going to be cutting it off here pretty quickly. So next caller is Jerry Keelan. Jerry, good evening, and thanks for being with us. And Jerry, you're going to have to unmute yourself. So we're going to wait. We're going to wait for Jerry to unmute himself here. I see his mute button is still on. I think at the lower corner of your screen, you can, on the lower left-hand corner, you can hit unmute. So we're going to try to.
Yes, COVID has made us all technology. They're forcing us to be all technology IT people.
Savvy, yes.
Boy, isn't it the truth?
There we go. Now we hear you, Jerry.
Oh, well.
Congratulations. We're glad to have you. Go ahead.
Okie dokie, for an old geezer, not too bad. Well, firstly, I want to congratulate both of you for, you know, kind of doing some fiscal monitoring within the state. But the reason for my call this evening, it really has to do with the opioid use and how it affects, you know, the legitimate user of opioids. I'll use my wife as an example. You know, she does use an opioid, you know, for chronic long-term pain. And it seems that legislatively within the state, you know, the focus has been fentanyl, and it seems like the legislature tries to hit the low-hanging fruit, and the effect of that is on the legitimate user for a lot of reasons, but primarily pain control. Currently, you know, the wife, she takes some extended morphine, and there's none to be had in any pharmacy between Yakima to Tri-Cities, and I suspect the state, you know, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of the points I want to make is please consider, you know, when you're making legislation, the effect on people that legally use stuff. Another example would be the gun control measures that they're trying to make their way through the House and into the Senate. And with that, we'll get out of your guys' hair.
All right,
So-
Jerry, thanks much.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Thank you, John.
Yeah,
So
go
you're
ahead.
right.
Thank you.
You're right. The gun control measure that made it out of the House was going to make it, everyone had to get a license. You had to get a permit to even to buy a gun before. I mean, we already have extensive background checks on all of that. And continually, it's unconstitutional. It will go through the courts. You know, I don't know why continually these kind of bills come up from the majority party, because law-abiding citizens will go and follow the rules. Criminals do not follow the rules. You're not going to see a criminal go and, oh, hey, you know, I can't go out and shoot up something tonight because I haven't got my permit. I mean, it goes exactly against all common sense. So, no, hopefully that'll get killed in the Senate. I don't know that it will. It'll get killed in the courts for unconstitutionality later. You know, Washington State's Constitution is actually stronger on the Second Amendment than the U.S. Constitution. It is flat out cannot be infringed. We get to own guns, period, period, period. And so it doesn't make sense to me. So that law that bill got dropped where they want to try to keep guns out of law-abiding citizens' hands. Yet
And
a dozen bills dropped trying to make criminal sentences less for people that do things with guns. I mean, you know, my 7-year-old grandson would figure that one out better than some of these people. Yeah, and on that bill, on that gun control licensing bill, we tried to drop an amendment that said veterans should be exempt. They have lots of gun training. And because part of that bill is you have to go to this training class and you have to go to live round shooting ranges. And we tried to get current National Guard exempted. No, it makes no sense at all. Now back to the opioid thing a minute. You talking about, yeah, prescription drugs and the need for that. But I was confused a little bit on the long-term morphine, that there was a shortage of that. We'll have to look into that and see that. But you're right. We focus on the illicit use and the fentanyl, but there really are, this thing really started with prescription opioid drugs that can take over a person sometimes. And we do have to be cognizant of what to do or find alternatives for that.
All right, and Representative Mendoza.
Oh, I just want to say that, you know, Representative Manjarrez covered it well, but that was one of the bills that kept us out until about 3 a.m. There were several amendments that were added to that because there was, you know, just it was a bad bill. But by the time it gets to the floor, it's going to pass because the Democrats are in the majority. And what's really disappointing is that a lot of these bills are focused on taking the rights of law-abiding citizens, just like Representative Manjarrez said. And I I'm always going to be a supporter of law-abiding citizens and our constitutional rights. And when you see a bill that is saying we could let individuals out of jail before their term is over, and you're saying, but we have to, you know, take rights from law-abiding citizens and trying to take their right to protect themselves. In our district, we have, in Klickitat, we have a lot of, well, throughout the, you know, the entire 14th district, we have farms. And, but we also have some ranches where it's not just crime, it's also, you know, I've talked to many constituents that say we're concerned about the wild animals that are in our, you know, in the Klickitat area. That attack their, you know, their, they raise cattle and sheep and so there's many reasons why it's important to, you know, to maintain your Second Amendment right and be able to, you know, to get a permit or carry, you know, a firearm. And so I just, I'm really concerned that, that, you know, we're easy on crime. And that, in fact, that bill passed. All the bills that made it to the floor passed. So it's important for you to get familiar. One thing I do want to mention, because I know we're getting close, John, is it very important that when you look, one of the things that I'm seeing, and I'm going to try to do my part when I go back to district, is look at the title of the bill. They always have good titles, public safety. And it is not about public safety. It is going to be about something completely different, because I can tell you that the Dems have mastered that. It's deceptive. I go straight into the bill. I research it, I study it, because if it says public safety, you can probably expect that it's not. It's not about public safety. It's about taking, you know, law-abiding citizen rights. If it says substance abuse and treatment, it's probably something that is going to, you know, require you to get out of treatment and, you know, and get assistance while you're in treatment, so that, you know, so there's always a twist in the bill. So for those of you that are watching, when you see a bill, go into it and read it. Read the fine print. There's always a way you can go in and look at the fiscal note. How much is it going to cost us? And when I say us, it's all of us taxpayers. So that's one thing I've learned. And let me tell you, I'm going to go and blast it in English and Spanish and say, these bills are not about public safety. They're about something else. And substance abuse, it's just not the priority of the majority party to help people that are dying because of the drug, you know, problem that we have in the state. So with
Well,
that,
as they say, the devil is in the details, right?
yes,
So
absolutely.
if all else fails, read the bill, right?
Yes, read
If
the
all
bill,
else
read the
fails,
details. Yes.
read the bill. Well, listen, we are
Thank you.
pretty much out of time, and so I'm sorry we weren't able to get to some of the other callers tonight. And I'll give you the email addresses for your lawmakers in just a moment, but I want to give them just about a minute or so just for some final thoughts. And so we're going to start out again with Representative Manjarrez and then go to Representative Mendoza. So Representative Manjarrez, you know, 14th Legislative District, I love this district. I have been working with lawmakers from that district since 1996, and I've been across your district, and it's one of the most beautiful places in the entire state of Washington. You guys are so very lucky over there to be living over there and to be representing the wonderful people of the 14th Legislative District. So some final thoughts for you tonight.
Thank you, John. Yes, it is God's country down there in the 14th Well, we've talked about a lot of bad things tonight, or sad things against taxpayers, but let me tell you about some good Republican bills that did make it off the floor and that are now over in the Senate. One of them is to reduce property taxes for disabled veterans. That did make it off. So there's veterans, many of them that have been in Vietnam that are still alive. They are on disability, and we've brought it down to almost 40%. If you're only 40% disabled, you can get a property tax reduction in your county. So hopefully that one makes it through. Requiring financial education for high school seniors to graduate. That made it through. A lot of our school districts are already doing that. That is so important. So you know how to buy a car and you know how to buy a house and you understand credit card interest. A protection hope cards. This is really important. This is for women primarily who have restraining orders. They have restraining orders because they've been in a domestic violence, so they have restraining orders. They're actually issued what's called a hope card. They have a card that gives their case and all of their information. So they don't have to carry around a whole group of papers when they have to prove to somebody they have this restraining order to keep them safe. That one's a really great one. Child care qualifications. We were able to reduce some of the onerous education credit requirements required of our child care providers. We have so many in-home child care providers. That is so important to all of our working families in the Valley. And so we were able to get that education requirement pushed out because they don't need that education. Those are some of the good ones. So there is some good stuff going on and the budget stuff's still working. And so thank you for tuning in tonight and send us your other questions in writing and we'll get you an answer back.
Okay, and I'll have those email addresses in just a moment, but let's finish it off. Last but certainly not least, our wonderful Representative Gloria Mendoza.
Thank you very much. And yes, thank you, Representative Manjarrez, also for mentioning there's many more good bills, but I think it's important to really let you know where we're at as far as, just fighting for some of the bad bills. But I do want to say just thank you to all of you that joined. Great questions. I had a good time speaking to our district. We needed this. We needed to hear from all of you after the fight on the floor all week. I realized that as a freshman, I think we were the ones that were wide awake, right, Representative Manjarrez, because everybody else was asleep. But Deb and I felt like we were at a slumber party watching, just I was very proud of our Republican team. They put up a great fight. And it was fun to just see that that it's all on record that that we have tried to stop some bad bills, and we did. We stopped a lot of bad bills that didn't come out because of that that fight. But I can't wait until I get back to district so that I can go see you in person and I can hear from you directly. I've had a good time. I look forward to, if any of you spoke Spanish and didn't understand, you can give me a call or when I get back to district, schedule a meeting. We've had a lot of people from the Lower Valley that don't speak English and they were here fighting for their children. I enjoy seeing young people involved in this process. We have met with hundreds of students, Yakima Valley students, Heritage University. We've had just young people that have come to fight for their, just an opportunity to get, training and go to school or, talking about being able to work, because right now that's another thing that I'm really concerned about is our young people not being able to get jobs because of, just making it more and more difficult for employers to hire them. So again, it's just, we're going to continue. We started today seeing the Senate bills. As John mentioned, I'm in post-secondary education and environment and energy. And now that we're starting to see those bills, and I'm also on the transportation. So we're going to continue representing you and being your voice. So just reach out to us. And thank you again for joining us this evening. Ha sido un placer. Gracias.
And thank both of you as well. And we also want to thank our support folks here including Jennifer Hansen, who's been in the background also helping us this evening as well. You know, if we didn't get to your question tonight, and I know there were a few people who still had questions and their hands up and we weren't able to get to everyone, you can email your question to your 14th District lawmakers. Again, Deb Manjarrez is deb.manjarrez@leg.wa.gov. Manjarrez is spelled Manjarrez. And Gloria.Mendoza@leg.wa.gov. Again, that's Gloria.Mendoza@leg.wa.gov. You may also call them. Representative Manjarrez's phone number, 360-786-7856. Again, 360-786-7856. The lovely lady on the other end that will be taking your call, her name is Elizabeth, and she's wonderful. And then the other wonderful person on the other end of the phone over with Representative Mendoza is Annalise, and that phone number is 360-786-7960. Again, 360-786-7960. This has been a 14th District Zoom community conversation with your 14th District Representatives Deb Manjarrez and Gloria Mendoza. Again, if you'd like to get some more information on them, go to their websites. Very easy, representative.debmanjarrez.com and representative.gloriamendoza.com. By the way, if you do speak Spanish, you'll find Spanish videos there, and you'll also find you can sign up for their Spanish e-newsletter as well. So you can sign up for English or Spanish both. So this is all about communication, folks. And we always want to hear from you, and we really appreciate you joining us this evening. And again, I'll give you the one last phone number. It's the toll-free legislative hotline. It's 1-800-562-6000, 1-800-562-6000. The legislature works, folks, because of you. It works because you're out there and your voice, and you're telling your representatives, and this is the time to do it because we have now until the 27th of April. And this is the time to get out there and get involved, because if you're not interested in politics, I guarantee you politics is definitely interested in you. So get out there and make your voice known. Thanks again for joining us tonight, folks. On behalf of Representatives Manjarrez and Mendoza, have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.